Okay.
Cheers.
Cheers. Cool.
Tasty.
Do you want to start?
I will, no, well, no,
I'll
after
go.
you.
All right. First question. Why do you think Fire Shut Up in My Bones is a great first opera?
Wow. For a number of reasons, musically, I just think it's so accessible. I mean, what Terence wrote is so brilliant. And I think, people can just tap in immediately to the sound world. And the story too is just, I mean, it's handling, very serious subject matter. But I think it's an important story that a lot of people have, that have either been too afraid to talk about or, have felt shame because of it. And, it tackles a difficult story while, it, creates room for just so much, authentic blackness that we just, don't really see on the operatic stage. So I think it just opens up, the world for, for people who maybe not necessarily will go to the opera, but can go to something like Fire and just immediately be immersed into the world, understand what it is, and it's a really great piece.
Yeah. Well, I think to add to what you're saying, I think it's such a great opera and a theater piece.
Yeah.
Where all of us can find moments, maybe not the major topic of the show, but I think there are these small moments throughout the opera where each one of us can recognize ourselves. Like wanting to go to school, for instance. You have to wait until you can grow.
Yeah.
I was definitely on one of those kids who had to go to school like tomorrow when I was 4. Obviously that didn't work out.
Right.
But I feel like there are all these moments that put us into our childhood and into elements that we've experienced.
Yeah.
And I just think it offers such a nice way for everyone to reflect on our own lives and to realize where we are and what we might need to deal with.
Yeah.
And all said with beautiful music.
Yeah.
Okay. Second question for Will. As a Ryan Opera Center alumnus, how does it feel to be back in a leading role?
It's a special thing. I mean, that's cliche. No, but it really is. I mean, I came into, even before Ryan Center, I was a chorister at Lyric when I was in college. And the first show that I did was Porgy and Bess. And that really gave me, just being a part of a professional company for the first time and working with great people just really inspired me to want to pursue opera and to have a solo career. Then coming back to do the Ryan Center and now to come back to do, monumental work like this is super important and special, and I'm very thankful to have the opportunity to do it. So, yeah.
And I mean, there was a show in between our first show that we did.
Absolutely.
Boom.
Fellow Travelers. We worked on Fellow Travelers.
That was when we were babies.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
That was our first thing.
That was our first thing.
Yeah, and that was 2018.
18. Yeah.
And that was a special, I mean, just, gosh, the cast was amazing.
Yeah.
That was a special time.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Well, it's so great to work with you again.
Absolutely.
In
Yes.
in a new thing.
Yes. Yeah. It's tremendous. So, yeah. Feels like a full circle moment.
Totally. There's definitely that element to it where you've grown up hopefully and you come back to your home in a way, and you get to share different things that you've learned since and where you are right now.
Yeah. Great. My turn.
Your turn.
Okay. After conducting 2 chamber operas, how does it feel to be making your main stage debut?
Really good question, and I feel like it kind of falls maybe in the same sphere as maybe your experience. So last 2 shows I did were chamber operas with a smaller cast and smaller orchestra in different venues. So this just feels, first of all, I'm really grateful to be back here and to be making music with everyone and to, to work with the cast. And this time with full orchestra, there are members of this orchestra that I haven't met last 2 times that I'm meeting and hearing now for the first time. And it's just great to see and hear everyone and experience Lyric on a main stage, to experience the whole production in the big house. The same is for the chorus. The last 2 productions didn't have any chorus, so it's been great working with Michael Black, our chorus master, and getting to see the faces of lyric singers, you know,
Yeah.
who are here, who make up this company. So
Yeah.
it's been really great. I feel a little bit like a kid in a candy shop at the
Yeah.
same time. But also I feel, you know, so many things have happened since 18 and 19 and obviously in 2020. So it's great to get to create something new with the full company.
Yeah. And it's so cool too because I remember like we were around during the same time because you were doing Eurydice, so you kind of saw fire at the Met where it kind of just like you know checking in with it, and it was so cool to be able to watch you do Eurydice at the Met too, and you know on a new piece, and it's just incredible how you lead and you know
so much.
and being there for us singers, and it's really great.
It's my pleasure and honor, so thank you.
Yeah.
Feel very blessed to be working with everyone I'm working with.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Cool. Well, next question.
Uh-oh. Here we go.
Whoa. How did you get started? What made you want a career in opera?
Gosh. For me, I got started in high school. I grew up playing a lot of gospel music and growing up in church. And yeah, it was Governor School for the Arts in Norfolk, Virginia, where I auditioned for the voice program. I didn't know at the time it was an opera program per se. It was just said voice. So I'm like, what are we doing? Like R&B? Like, what's the vibe? And I get there and it's like the 24 Italian art songs. I'm like, I don't know Italian from German from like, you know, so that was the thing that got it started was Governor School. And I did that for 4 years. And the thing about Governor School too is it was it wasn't a summer thing. We would do that throughout the course of the year. So I would go to my regular high school and then hop on a bus and go to Governor School. And then we would have like German diction and theory. We put on fully staged shows, and I don't know, just that experience just gave me, you know, like, wow, this is something that was unexpected and new, and it really gave me a passion for opera, and you know, I wanted to pursue it, you know, at the collegiate level and just continue from there.
Was there one opera that you heard at that time that really turned things around for you, or a singer that you heard?
My story is, I remember, so we would go to the dress rehearsals at Virginia Opera, and my first opera ever was Die Valkyrie.
Oh my God! Not a lot of people can say that.
So I fell asleep. I'm not gonna lie. Like I'm 13-year-old. Like I don't know what this, you know, like it was our first show, but what captivated me was at the end, I think Act 3, when you hear the Ride of the Valkyries, I was just so taken aback because in my mind, I thought that the opera stole that from the cartoon. And I was like, I recognize that theme, you know, like that's the Ride, the dun 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 dun. I went to my music teacher and I'm like, that's from Bugs Bunny, like they stole that. I was like, no, the opera came first, and like, you know, you hear that theme in so many different, you know, commercial, like mainstream settings, and that just sort of like, you know, sparked a lot of things. I had immediately just like, wow, just taken aback by, you know, how opera is just so larger than life with the costumes and the sets and just the big singing. I remember we took a trip too to the Met when I was like a sophomore in high school, and we were like way up in the nosebleeds. And I was just so in awe of how the singers were just hitting me like right here, as if, you know, they were unamplified, and it's just an incredible thing. You know, it's like definitely an Olympic type of thing. And I was like, man, I want to learn more about that and learn how to do that. So
definitely. Well, I think there is we have such a strong response to human voice. And especially trained voices, and like the amounts that y'all can cover of space and how far you can project. I think it's just such an incredible thing to witness and to hear in work, and then when we go and see different performances. You mentioned Virginia Opera, and you are involved with Virginia Opera as well right now, right? As artistic advisor, did I get?
Over just the past, I think, 2 or 3 months, I was appointed as like a creative advisor with Virginia Opera, which is really special. You know, that being, I call Lyric my home company, but you know, that's, you know, where I grew up, and I'm just so happy to, you know, because I love ideas and, you know, thinking up new projects, and to come back in that capacity and work for Virginia Opera I'm really excited to do that, and, you know, see where it goes. So
that's so exciting, and I mean they have such a great person in you with everything that you're doing, all the creative outlets you have and creative output. That's really fantastic.
Thank you so much.
I have one follow-up question for you, Valkyrie. Was it in German or in English?
It was in German.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
It was in German. Yeah, that was a special time.
That's very different. My first opera was Carmen.
Okay.
In Serbian.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, because the Serbian National Theater, where my grandmother sang, they used to do all of the operas in Serbian language, so in sort of language of the audience. And then the first time I heard Carmen, it was in Serbian, and I could not understand that it wasn't written like yesterday, and then B, that it was written in French.
Wow.
I was just like,
yeah, right,
you know,
right.
I was like 5, and my grandmother tried to persuade me that no, the piece was written in like 1875.
Wow.
And it was written in French, and I said, no way. There's just, it sounded so fresh and so contemporary.
Yeah.
So I'm always curious, sort of what was the first language you heard an opera in? Because of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's really significant when you think about it. Yeah.
I guess so, yeah. But I didn't think about it until somebody asked me.
Right. In Serbian, like, that's very unique.
Yeah, that is very unique.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. I guess it's my turn. I feel like it's like a drinking game or something. You know, like every time you get a card, you have to take a drink.
Yeah.
How has it been working with the rest of the cast of Fire Shut Up in My Bones? Dun, dun, dun. No, I'm kidding.
It's been amazing. I mean, we've known each other for 4 years now. And
already? Gosh, time flies.
I know. Too much. No, but it's been really great working with you, working with LaTanya, working with Brittany, with sort of this cast that has a history with the piece already from the Met, and then young singers that we have joining us here. There are a couple of Ryan Center singers, and it's been just so great seeing the history that y'all have created already and how we fit into that, and how much further can we take a story, and sort of what is our combined musical language? How do we translate things? I mean, I think every time you get a new person into a cast, something is going to change.
Absolutely.
And also when you get a new person on the podium, something shifts. So it can be really nerve-wracking for us who are the new kids on the block. But it's been so great working with everyone because, you know, I feel there is collaboration. There is a want to do stuff and to try stuff out, and it's been really fantastic.
No, I can second that wholeheartedly because, you know, in a way, for us, the returning, it's like we're picking up where we left off, but at the same time, there's a newness to this piece with people being added on, and, you know, your voice in it, other people in the cast, and like how they interpret the piece, and like how we just kind of reshape it for us, you know, as for this cast and this place.
Right.
You know?
I mean, I think it's so important to keep the structure and to keep the bond that you all have created, the singers who have already done it, to sort of try and fit ourselves into that, but then also to expand on that. And it's been really great. It's been a dream. Yeah.
If you think about it, that's always the crazy thing when I think about opera and stories, like, you know, Carmen, Barbara de Seville, it's like the same stories for hundreds of years. But what makes people go back are the people's interpretations.
Exactly.
Who is telling the story and like what, you know, people just want to relive it, but it has a newness and a freshness to it. And that's why people always come back to the theater, I think. You know?
Yeah. I mean, I think all of these pieces, what you said about Carmen and, you know, Bohème, and I think all of these pieces are so timeless in a way that as audience members, whenever we see these stories, we get so engrossed into the storytelling that even though we know what's going to happen, we're still keeping the hope that like maybe there's a different ending. Maybe Mimi doesn't die this time she gets saved. But of course,
no, and that's the brilliance of just great writing. You know, it becomes timeless. And,
agreed.
Yeah.
Cool. My turn.
Right.
My turn.
Office reference.
Yep. Why do you think it's important to champion new American operas?
Oh, come on. Do I have to state the obvious, guys? It's simple, really. You know, like we always talk in opera, like, how do we bring in new audiences? How do we diversify? Like telling new stories and continuing. And it's, for me, I always preface it by like, we're not trying to take away the greats, you know, and like say that those aren't relevant anymore because, like we said, they're timeless for a reason. We know they're not going anywhere. But it is very important that we continue to create real space for new stories to be told, because I feel like that's the only way to keep pushing this art form forward. You know, so yeah.
Well, to add.
You've done and you've done a lot of new works too, like
I have,
like and just been a lot of different spaces and creating, like what's that been,
So I was doing that sort of like mental reflection of a couple of seasons, because this is the first season when I have a good amount of contemporary works, but I also have traditional works. And I think it was 18 or 19, I don't remember, but I had 9 new operas that season to do. And but the thing for me that's really interesting, and this was already when I was studying piano, and we had to play pieces written after 1945. There was no way of getting out of that. And I just feel when I deal with contemporary pieces, when I work with composers who are still can sort of like be on my left-hand side, and I can ask them question of, what did you think about this? I just think it gives me a different perspective of the traditional canon, and it opens up my mind to see things differently. Just sort of, if this is notated this way, well, maybe this is what was meant, or maybe this is what I can read in it, as long as I find a really strong reason, and as long as my reasons make sense on every single level. But I think it's important to develop works. I think it's important to hear the composers of our time. The great thing also right now is, especially in regards to the United States, because this is where I've had the most experience with contemporary music, I think that we don't necessarily have one specific school that we're following of composition. So every composer can bring in their own background, their own experience, their own traditions into an operatic form, which is essentially a classical form. But I think it's so exciting being able to fuse those things and see where it takes us.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Wow. What is the best advice you've ever received? Boom.
Best advice. I've gotten so many over years. But one that always comes up was actually from Martina Arroyo.
Oh, wow.
I worked a lot with her when I moved to New York. And one thing that she would always ask me, as a coach, and then singers who were studying with her, is sort of, why did you decide to make this decision and this choice? And that why, of knowing exactly why you're doing something and why you're shaping a phrase the way that you are, having those answers ready has been literally the best advice I've ever been given.
Wow.
Yeah. And I think it came from other people as well in different forms. But I've just worked with Martina for consistent periods for a couple of years. And so she would always ask, why are you doing this? And it wasn't necessarily an advice, but I think learning from that was the best advice.
Yeah. Wow. I love that.
So, well, there we go. Yeah. Do you want to share the best advice? Oh.
Learn your music. I just remember, Mr. Brown, my late voice teacher from Governor School, was just like, is my musical father and someone I really admired. And he passed away in 2008, but, he was, such a great guy. And he was just so, about like coming in prepared and just being ready, and I miss him a lot.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. But what a great legacy.
Yeah.
He has left, right?
Yeah, because he's, that Governor School that I was talking about, Ryan Speedo Green went there.
Oh my God.
Freddie Ballantyne, just did Sport and Life at the Met. Like, we all came from that same school.
That's amazing. Did you all know each other when you were there?
We were all in the same program.
So what does it feel like now when you all meet?
I got a little emotional, like, when we did it at the Met, because, like, this was my first time singing with Speedo. Back then we called him Ryan, but like don't put that in the but he, Speedo and I, like, we went to high school together. We studied with Mr. Brown, and he was 2 years ahead of me. And he was A cast Rostro, I was B cast Rostro. Like, I was a bass back, I don't know, whatever, role you could call yourself as a 14-year-old kid. But we just sort of came up together, and we both took that trip to the Met together. Aww. So to be on stage at the Met, like, in such a special piece like that, for the Uncle Paul and Charles, it just like hit me. I was like, man, Brown would really be happy to see us right now. And it was a special thing. Yeah.
That's very sweet.
Yeah.
Oh, that's really nice.
Yeah.
All right. Are you ready?
Uh-oh.
Whoa. What would you consider some of your career highlights thus far?
Oh, man. That's hard. There's so... I would say... the Porgy and Bess I did here in 2008, just because that was my first professional thing. That was a special time. Charlie Parker's Yardbird.
Oh yeah.
Fellow Travelers. Seattle Opera, Barber Seville. And it was because of the dress rehearsal, like going back to like, you know, why we do what we do. There was this lady who came to see the dress of that barber. And that was the last barber I did. It was like 2017 or something. And she came to the stage door, and I didn't know anyone in Seattle that was going to come to the dress, but she had flowers for me. And I, you know, came up to her and she was like, I just wanted to thank you for your performance tonight. I was debating whether to come to the opera. And apparently, like, her brother used to sing opera, and he did Figaro's, I guess, you know, wherever he used to sing, and he died in the 9/11 terrorist attacks. So ever since that 9/11, she had not set foot into an opera house until that dress, for whatever reason, she decided to go. It was double cast, so she saw my night and just, you know, preemptively, I guess, had these flowers and gave them to me and just said, like, you've helped me, you know, kind of close a chapter that's, you know, been something that's just been on my heart for a long time, and I haven't been able to set foot into the opera house. And that moment right there was just like a reminder of why we do this. Yeah. You know, Barber Seville is a comedy. That's the last thing on my mind to think about.
Somebody would,
you know, that was just like, that was the forever reminder of, like, you know, we go through, you know, the auditions and the challenges of rehearsal, and we get caught up, you know, sometimes in like, it can be stressful, but then you realize, like, oh, this is why we do it. You know, you never know who you could be affecting out in the audience for any number of reasons.
So true.
And had she not come back stage, like, I would have never known that, but she would have still had that, you know, like, so that's always like a special moment. And of course, needless to say, Fire, you know, opening up the Met season kind of unexpectedly. Like, I auditioned for Fire during the pandemic. Oh. So I never expected to be, you know, to be a part of this this show, and, you know, and doing it here, I got to say, just because of, you know, coming back home and, you know, being able to work with great people, working with you again, and, you know, just I feel so blessed to have this opportunity. So
that's a beautiful story.
Yeah, I named like 8 different things, but they all are important. So
of course, I feel like every last gig I do was just the highlight of everything I ever did.
Yeah, right.
And then of course, you know, that gives you energy to go into your next project and to do the next thing and to sort of remind yourself of why you're doing something.
Right. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Is it my turn?
It is your turn.
What would be your dream opera to conduct?
Oh my God.
Phantom of the Opera.
No, no. I'm giving myself a few years in this. Oops. Sorry about that. But Der Rosenkavalier. Just, I mean, I didn't. It was, there is a recording with Carlos Kleiber from 1979, Munich production, and I feel that is one of the most magical operatic experiences I've seen, not live, but on a video. This production that's currently at the Met is just mind-blowingly well done and beautiful. But I think there was something with Carlos Kleiber, with that recording, where I thought I would never dare try that until maybe 2-3 years ago, and I thought, well, I mean, why not? Why not want to do it?
Yeah.
There's a beautiful documentary that I actually watched recently about Richard Strauss and all of his women heroines. And so they interviewed, you know, prominent sopranos who have sung Strauss heroines, and Renee Fleming was one of them. And she was talking about the monologue of the Marschallin in end of Act 1. And she sort of talks about how every woman recognizes that moment when the time is passing, when we're aging. And I think before she even said it, I think that moment of Marschallin, that recognition of where she is, what her time has been, where she is right now, and sort of everything that's going on, I think is just such a honest statement that she makes.
Yeah.
And then I think the score is just absolutely magical, especially the trio at the end in Act 3. Also the way that Baron Ox is portrayed in Act 2, if that role is played really, really well, he can be so arrogant, but you can have a little bit of sadness for him, so it doesn't become a caricature.
Right. Yeah.
I think it's just one of the greatest operas that
beautiful score.
transcends us into a, Vienna of early 20th century. But again, I'm giving myself a little bit of
more
time with that one.
Okay. I mean, I feel like you could conduct anything.
Thank
so.
you. Thank you.
Yeah.
What about you? Dream role?
Woo.
Or dream opera to conduct? I don't know.
Oh gosh, look, I took basic conducting in college. The amount of respect that I have for I can barely keep track of like four, but like a whole score. Every time I see a big full score, it just stresses me out. Like I don't know how. Like it's amazing and incredible. Like how you keep track of so like cueing everybody, making sure everyone has what they need, and like keeping the band together. Like it's special. So I mean, for dream opera. For I guess a dream role, are all the roles I can't sing right? I guess Tosca would be one. I love Scarpia.
Oh, yeah.
Tosca's one of my favorite operas, and the role of Scarpia is just, from that first entrance and the Act 2 is just, it's what I love about opera. Just that grand singing and just, it's my favorite.
Yeah.
So.
Well, Scarpia has some of my favorite lines in operatic history ever. Because there's always that sort of like snakiness to his lines. So when he's already manipulating Tosca in the Act 1, già il veleno, la rosa, with the descending chromatics, I mean, it's sort of like sinks into your heart.
Oh, yeah.
And then in Act 2, when everything that's going on, he says, oh, my poor dinner has been interrupted. Like that's the biggest problem, right?
Right.
Okay.
The mind games.
All right, Baron.
Yeah, right,
yeah. Cool. Well... Okay, what do you enjoy most about Terence Blanchard's music?
Oh gosh, we were talking about this earlier, and for me, because he's a jazz musician and he's so well versed in those styles, and gospel is like similar in some ways with like the sound world and the chords and the progressions. Immediately going into that score, there's just like an immediate connection to that language and that musical world. And that's one of my favorite things about Fire. It's just how he's able to fuse those jazz elements from those black musical styles that we kind of grew up listening to, and making them work operatically. And I think it's a great score. It's beautiful.
Yeah, it is. I mean, the scene that really struck me when I first saw it at the Met was in the car in Act 3.
That music is. Woo.
I mean, that sort of like brought me back to my student days. I think, and that's the great piece. That's the great thing about this piece is that again, through all of these elements, it can really transport you back in time in a way.
Yeah.
And it's so atmospheric, and it really creates this very unique and special space where you as a listener are participating in a story, but you're also creating your own story with itself. Yeah.
And I love the theme. Like I just, one of the things I love is just the themes that come back.
Yeah.
It's one of the things we always tune into. We listen to music, those access points of like, oh, I heard that before, and it's coming here. And how it's repurposed and it carries a different meaning.
Exactly.
Those things are really genius. So.
Yeah. Well, every time the chorus sings "Charles Baby Young is a 5," there's a sort of different meaning throughout all of that. And first time it starts as teasing, but then the sort of then it gets darker and darker and more heavy. Yeah. Very cool. Your turn.
My turn. Fire Shut Up in My Bones is based on Charles Imblow's best-selling memoir. Does it affect your performance or preparation when the characters being portrayed on stage are based in real life? That's a great question. It is a rare thing. I don't think I've ever been in a position to have, done a role of someone who's living and breathing. And I said this in an earlier interview, it was kind of scary meeting Charles for the first time, I didn't know what to expect. I remember we had done a rehearsal in New York and we had a photo shoot for the New Yorker and he had just flown in from Atlanta. So
I remember that article.
Yeah. So I didn't want to bombard him with a bunch of questions and it was just, we were just meeting each other for the first time. But I did thank him for telling his story and, even just based off of the light conversation that we had, I just picked up on a lot, just, how he carries himself, how he talks. And it was so jarring just because I had just finished rehearsal and then met the person who I'm actually playing that never happens.
Wow.
I tried to do the best I can to portray Charles and just be true to the story, but also remembering that it's a retelling of the story.
Right.
told on an operatic stage. And so, it's not like a play-by-play, like movie version of his life in the novel, and you're getting the characters and their likeness and all that kind of stuff. But like, it's a monumental piece of art told through the words of Casey and the music of Terence. So as a performer, I tried my best to like embody the character, but you also have to embody the work itself and the music and all of that. So just, kind of focusing on that and what we create together for the stage, I think is important. But it's great, of course, to have, the memoir and, Charles there. Exactly. As research in a way to, just inform what you're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. There was one sentence when I was preparing Fire, and you always have to think about pacing and driving the story and sort of where does it go and what are the main points that are important in the narrative. And there is one sentence early on in the book where he talks about his great-grandmother. I'm forgetting the name right now, but he says she was like a river, always moving until she met the grandfather, and then she became the ocean. She sort of accepted who she was, and she was still, and she was this, this body of water that was just there. And for me, reading that sentence, it's immediately clicked that that's the opera. The opera has this drive forward. It keeps on driving until you get to now my life begins. Until there, that sort of like feels like such a release.
Oh wow, that's very special.
Okay, cool. Yeah. Right. But just also where that chord comes from, it's only in piano. We've been playing up to that point, and then there's a little bit of silence, and then it's just like an exhale moment. And having read that sentence, I thought, oh, this is. That
makes a lot of sense.
This is it.
Opened my eyes. So that's really, that's very insightful.
Yeah. Cool.
Is it my turn?
I think so.
This is the last question.
Oh.
You ready? In 1927, the Yankees. No, I'm kidding. That's not.
Oh wow.
What have you learned about yourself? What have you learned about yourself or this art form throughout the pandemic?
Really great question. So, pandemic was really hard on everyone, obviously. Obviously, I think we all collectively found ourselves with sort of no direction. And I often thought about that it felt like the most vulnerable moment that we could be in, because we've been performing, we've been artists since, we can remember, and suddenly that thing is taken away from you, and you have to figure out, who am I as a person? Yeah. So I picked up 2 hobbies during the pandemic. The first one was gardening, which was really great. And again, in the book, in Fire, Shut Up in My Bones, there's a great sentence of saying, in order for new things to grow, you have to rework the land. And when I started working in our little garden, that was the thing. Like, you see how many weeds there are. You have to clean everything out before you can start bringing new things in. So that idea of sort of tending to our own garden really stuck with me. And it taught me how much responsibility we have to what we're doing on stage and in rehearsals and in dealing with music, dealing with, colleagues and collaborators. Just sort of recognizing what are our responsibilities and what can we do. And then also in terms of, this is maybe a little bit philosophical, but just in terms of things you can control and things you can't control. Learning that balance. And then my second hobby that I picked up was actually pottery.
I remember we talked about that.
And that furthered that even more, because with pottery, of course, you make one wrong move if you're not unaware of what you're doing, and the whole thing can just collapse immediately. Right. And it's again that really commitment to being in the moment of realizing what is in your control, of also breathing with an instrument that's in your hands, of figuring out how it moves, what shapes you can make with it. I think those were the 2 biggest lessons. Wow. Yeah, responsibility and where can we have control. Wow. So what about you?
Wow.
I mean, you wrote an opera during the pandemic, so how was that? It
was a roller coaster of a time, just learning more about, who I am as a person. I think for me, the pandemic taught me, not to wait for permission. And that I'm not defined by what I do, because we all had that taken away from us. So
that's
it's like,
yeah.
who am I without the stage and the crowd and like gigs to do, and we're just sort of at home coping with all this stuff. And it's a challenging time, and for me, through that, I just, kind of just had an awakening of like, yes, I'm an opera singer, but, if you have other passions, and I, tell other singers this too, and performers, like, pursue those things, do the things that make you happy. And even if, society says like, oh, well, you're not qualified, or you don't have, they think that you're not ready, like if it's something that, fulfills you, then do that thing. And we all had to like search for what that thing was, like, and same with me. I picked up some, new hobbies and things like that, but it's just like I learned a lot about myself and sort of just stepped outside the box and, really figuring out like what my true passions are. And, it was a hard time, but at the same time, I learned a lot and grew from it. And,
I mean, it was super hard. I haven't seen my family, my sister and my mom and my stepdad in 2 years.
Wow.
Because we couldn't travel.
Right.
And it was one of those things where like, potentially we could have gone back to visit them, but then you don't know what is travel going to be like in a month.
Right.
I mean, it was just it was really a not fun experience. But there are these little moments that now looking back, if we had known how long things were going to go on, we could have even used up more of the time that we've been given.
Right.
But of course, in the moment, who who thinks about that?
Right. No, I think it really, for me, also made me think about the things that really matter in life too.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Totally.
Yeah.
Totally.
And just a realization of like, man, I'm on you're on the road and you get so bogged down with stuff. It's just like, man, I want to be there for my family. And be around for the people that are, your village, the people that help build you up. And like, that's so important. That goes beyond the stage or anything like that. That's just life, you know, so.
Couldn't agree more.
Yeah,
So there we are. No more questions.
More questions.
No,
Cheer.
no more
Wait, we can't do a
questions.
double cheers. That's bad luck, right?
Is it? Okay, well then
Oh,
don't cheer.